If you would like to support the podcast and get some extra content while you're there, head on over to patreon.com/SevereMMA podcast and sign up. From the rewatch to the Q&A, we will have loads of content every week. So sign up, patreon.com/SevereMMA podcast. And now, here's the podcast. Welcome everybody. It's episode 402 of the Severe MMA podcast. My name is Sean Sheehan, aka Shawnee Podcast, the pod god, the scoring lord. Lots of the suits there. Some people call me after predicting a draw correctly at the weekend. Lots of different nicknames. Joined today by the Dominic Calvert-Lewin of Irish MMA Media, Graeme McDonald, as we talk about a massive week in the world of mixed martial arts. Maybe the fight of the year went down at the weekend, but we'll get into all of that in a minute. But before we get to that, roses are red, violets are blue, and our friends at Manscaped have a gift for you. They're now selling beard products. That's right, the leader in grooming, in men's grooming even, are revolutionising the men's hygiene game once again with the new Beard Hedger Pro Kit. It all starts with that Beard Hedger. It's a cordless trimmer that has a rotary wheel with 20 hair cutting lengths. You saw Michael Bisping at the weekend talking about it. Absolutely brilliant. And Valentine's Day is coming up, so if you want to get one, put in your order now. It's even better. You can save 20% off and get free shipping over at manscaped.com using the code SevereMMA. The Beard Hedger Pro Kit is the ultimate tool to get the perfect look for Valentine's Day and beyond. 7 million men worldwide already trust Manscaped with their balls, so it's time to trust it with the hair up top too. With this new kit, you can take your grooming routine to the next level. The Beard Hedger is an electric beard hair trimmer, and it's a premium beard sculpting machine. That's a hard word to say. Along with having only one guard, leaving little mess, it's also waterproof. You can shave in the shower to avoid all of that hair around the bathroom and all of that stuff on the floor and the whole lot. Plus, the titanium coated T-blade is tough on hair but smooth on your face. The Beard Hedger Pro Kit doesn't end there though. They also have 4 dermatologist tested formulations. I've absolutely fucked up that word. First, there is the beard shampoo and conditioner. You need to remember all your hair is different. Beard hair is more coarse and easier to damage, so you need the shampoo and conditioner. For that, then they have Manscaped's beard oil, known once a guy whose beard is brittle and dry, and the oil relieves both dryness on the beard and the skin beneath it while adding a bit of shine. Cap it off with the Beard Balm, a pomade that shapes, styles, moisturizes and tames for the sculpted look. So the Beard Hedger Pro Kit also comes with 3 free gifts: the beard brush, comb, scissors, to ensure you have all the tools for the perfect beard. From first impression to last, you're going to love it, and everyone who sees your improved facial hair game will love it too. So get 20% off with free shipping using code SevereMMA at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com using the code SevereMMA. Spice up Valentine's Day this year with Manscaped's Beard Hedger, 1 stroke, 1 guard, 20 links. Okay, Graeme, let's talk a bit of mixed martial arts. We obviously had a UFC 284 going down late on Saturday night. Do you know what? This was a pretty bad card up until the main card, which is, that's all right, because we give me a good main card over a good undercard any day. We want both, preferably, but this was, this was a card that kind of opened up with a split decision for Brenner. We might talk about that actually in a while, because that was a close decision. Blake Builder, a bit meh in that one. Luma Lookboon got a finish, that was good. Jack Jenkins looked good, but it was another decision. Jamie Malarkey, Prado was so bad, another decision. Then Cledson Rodriguez gave us a bit. That was pretty good. Joshua Kulabau with Alan Philpott in his corner. That was pretty good. Bukauskas and Pedro, we'll get into that, but another draw, another fight, a decision, a draw to open the main card. But then we had knockout, submission, and one of the fights of the year in the main event. And let's start with that fight of the year in the main event. Let's not beat around the bush here, because what a fight it was. I know there was a lot of debate afterwards about who won and what do you think the score was and all of that, but I don't think that is where we should start today, and we'll get into all of that, but we have to appreciate what a beautiful, brilliant fight this was. It was the pound for pound number 1 against the pound for pound number 2, champion versus champion, a genuine super fight, and we produced one of the best fights in UFC history, I think. Like, and maybe it's not, top 5 or top 10 or anything like that, but maybe it's probably top 25 or something like that, which is still a high-level, brilliant fight. And I absolutely loved it from the very start to the very end, because it mightn't have been a fight like Junior Dos Santos versus Mark Hunt is always the one that stands out to me, that edge of your seat through the whole thing. Someone's going to get knocked out. It wasn't one like that, but it was kind of edge of your seat the whole way, like, because it was close, because there was a few different swings and roundabouts, because Volkanovski was kind of stopping the takedowns a few times and then getting up from takedowns, and then there was knockdowns, and it was such a back and forth fight. To me, it had it all. It had the skill, it had the intrigue, it had the closeness, it had the impact, I suppose, if you want to say that, on the strikes as well. I just absolutely loved this fight from start to finish. One of my favourite fights of all time. I can't wait. I haven't watched it back yet, but I can't wait to go back and watch it, maybe even for the Q&A, and maybe go back and do a rewatch in a few weeks' time or something like that again, because this is one I think you could probably watch 5 or 6 different times and get 5 or 6 different reactions from it. But this is the initial reaction, Graeme, that we have. What was your initial reaction while watching the fight, and now the morning after, I suppose?
Yeah, I agree with you. It was absolutely brilliant. Definitely a fight of the year contender, if not the fight of the year so far. It had its ups and downs for both guys. It was swinging forward and backward. It had the jeopardy. It had the belts on the line, and it had the close matchup and the different styles. And both guys were really going for it. Islam was obviously waiting a little bit more, trying to pick his shots a bit more. Volk was trying to, at the very start of the fight anyway, he was having success getting in his face and trying to put the pressure on, but then he obviously got hit with that big shot. And even though it was kind of a forearm shot more than anything, but it definitely had a big impact. You could see that it stopped Volk in his tracks, and that was the first kind of swing at a bout, but there was many kind of swings and ups and downs, and just a brilliant fight. And until the very end, although I will get into the scoring afterwards, we can debate what rounds went to which. I don't think anybody was sure who was winning going into the 5th round. It was all on the line, and Volk obviously brought it in the 5th round, and it was just an absolutely brilliant performance from both guys in different ways, and just a really entertaining fight. And all the talk is probably going to be, as it always is, about the judging and about which round should have went to who. But what a fight! Like, leaving all that aside for a moment, like what a fight from both guys. They both really wanted it, both went for it, and they both had to overcome adversity at times, and they both had to get off the canvas, and just absolutely brilliant stuff. Just absolutely brilliant.
100%. It's funny at the end of these fights as well, we all, like, my analysis and their analysis as well, watching a couple of the interviews they did afterwards.
Before you say, the crowd definitely played a part in it as well. Obviously, big pops for everything Volkanovski was doing, but just brilliant crowd as well, which definitely adds to the feeling of a huge fight. And
the crowd added to the whole night as well, I think, because like the crowd had the perfect feel. It wasn't like, it wasn't bullying, I suppose, on the away fighters, if you want to say that, or it wasn't tough on them.
It wasn't, you were going to die, you were going to die, you were going to die.
Yeah, well, it was very supportive of the hometown fighters, but it had the perfect like mix of like drunk while not on cocaine, if you want to put it that way. Like, if you get me, they were fun, but they weren't like too much, and didn't get tired towards the end as well. It was one of those ones. I think the crowd really, really added it, and the Aussie fans all week, and Australia in general, always makes MMA so enjoyable, and we're lucky we have that here in Ireland as well. But they were absolutely fantastic. But just to pop back to the fight, I think like, so to talk about maybe the analysis, like the analysis after all of those big fights, right, where two lads who've never fought before, who are absolutely high level, come out of the fight, and and me watching it, any analyst watching it and them watching it can think, oh my God, I could have done this, and this so much better than I did in that fight. But you only learn that after the fight. So that's why I think like sometimes rematches can be maybe not even better, but maybe can be closer and can be more tactical and maybe tactically better, maybe then more exciting. Like, I don't think you get a more exciting fight than this between the two of them. Maybe you get even a tactically better one, if that's even possible, or a technically better one. But that's almost like a sidebar to what actually happened in the fight, because you could see both of them standing there trying to figure each other out. Like, they're the whole fight nearly. Like, I actually think even in the 5th round they were both still trying to figure each other out. It was one of those fights. Like, Makhachev was willing to strike with Volkanovski, but as I predicted coming in, Volkanovski's ability to move made Makhachev have to strike with him a lot more than he'd want to. Now, he did well with the takedown defense, and he did well getting back up and stuff as well, but I firmly believe it was a lot of his movement, his switching stances, not being a static target, that made it very hard for Makhachev to even attempt to get in to take him down at times. But then the big problem with that was Volkanovski actually had to adjust, where he was maybe more active in that than he'd want to be. All he was kind of doing at times was being a static target and showing that uppercut, as we saw for maybe the first 2 or 3 minutes of the fight, which he wouldn't normally do. So to fight in that sort of way, he's always moving, always going back and forth, but he does it usually for his own good. In terms of his offense, this time it was for defense. He was a way more defensively moving fighter than an offensively moving fighter in this fight than he normally would be. Now, it helps him defensively as well, and it helped him in other fights. It helped him defensively as well in this fight, but it hurt his offense an awful lot. He wasn't able to get that jab going as much as he would like. I'd say I'm not a big one for stats, but I guarantee you, if you look at the stats, he didn't land half as many shots in this fight than he did in previous fights. But that's a necessity when you're fighting someone like Islam Makhachev. And then for Makhachev on the other side of it, he was so much more powerful that it helped him in rounds where probably Volkanovski was just ahead to take those rounds, especially in the first 2. Just hit him a little bit harder than Volkanovski was able to hit him, and took the round. That happened both in the first and in the second round. And it was very interesting how that actually worked out. But by the time it came to the 3rd round, and Volkanovski kind of got that confidence in himself that, okay, I've been taken down now a couple of times and pushed against defense, and I realize I can actually go with this guy here. He opened up a little bit more. He landed his shots a little bit more, and it wasn't even that opened up, I suppose, a little more, because he wasn't in harder or throwing big knockout blows or anything, but he was getting going. He was getting into his game a little bit more, and that led to him arguably winning 3, 4 and 5. We get into that in a minute, but I think the tactics of that were absolutely brilliant. Now, Islam had success with the wrestling at times. He did take him down. He did have top control or back control at times during the fight, but that was only good enough because he could land those big shots on the feet. And it's funny for Islam, because we talked about his striking, and his striking is definitely not as good as Volkanovski's, but Volkanovski wasn't able to have that gap in ability of striking for the reasons I just said. He was fighting in a different way, and there was a massive gap in terms of the power, and Islam was able to land that power. So it was very smart from Islam. He picked his moments on the feet, and he landed the big shots. Cheeto Vera, Rob Font type of fight. Remember that, where Font is winning, Cheeto Vera, bang, knockdown, won the round 5 times in a row, or 4 times out of 5, or whatever it was. Islam was doing that. So this, I think both guys went up in my estimation after this, because of the adjustments they made, where they can still be top level fighters, where they were both intelligent, even though maybe it brought down their overall game from what we're used to, but it made them more competitive with each other, in each other's realms, in this fight. And it's a very complicated fight, right? But that's my take from it. And that was my tactical analysis of the fight watching it. It was like, this is such a smorgasbord of different analytics playing into each other here, where the adjustments in the striking from both guys made them different. The adjustment in wrestling that Makhachev had to do because of that striking made him different. And in Volkanovski, when he was on the ground and fighting a guy who, like Makhachev, had to defend and grapple very differently because he was fighting a guy like Makhachev and he wouldn't allow him to do anything else. And that was just brilliant and just absolutely fascinating to watch, to see how high level both guys can be in those areas. And it was an absolute fucking joy. What did you think of the whole tactics of it, Graeme, and watching it live? What was your kind of what was your breakdown of it, I suppose?
Yeah, like I think Volk was making more in-fight adjustments. He was kind of changing it up a lot, and maybe kind of decided on a more defensive kind of output that you kind of mentioned there. But he still was pressuring, selecting his moments of pressure. Makhachev just stayed very patient, kind of waited for his moments to land those shots, and just stayed very calm as well under a lot of pressure at times as well, which is definitely probably the most pressure he's been under in any of his fights. And obviously the takedowns that he got, he didn't really land any big ground and pound or come very close to getting a finish, but he made Volk have to worry about that, and didn't just strike with him in a pure kickboxing way. The threat of the takedown was always there, and he did time him a few really nice takedowns as well, especially that one in the middle of the cage where I think Volk was actually playing up to the crowd a bit. I think they mentioned it in the commentary, and I was thinking that even before they said it, that he was kind of scooting towards the cage, and he kind of was, I don't know, like playing up to the crowd a little bit and got his back taken, and that round ended up being crucial. So that was like an uncharacteristic mistake there, that maybe the crowd, playing up to the crowd, maybe actually in the end lost the fight for him, or put him in a position that ended up maybe think the judges thinking that he'd lost that round, even if that round is very debatable. I've seen a lot of people score that for Volk as well. So that was obviously nearly the only kind of even though he lost the fight on the decision, that was the only kind of criticism I'd have of Volk's performance. And I wouldn't really have any criticisms of Makhachev's performance. It was really brilliant performance from both guys, and I think on my scorecard anyway, I had it just for Makhachev, but I can see it both ways. But a different test than he's faced before, and he overcame it really well, stayed calm and mixed up his game even when it wasn't working maybe as it usually works in the grappling department. He wasn't having as much success. He still stuck to the game plan really well against a guy in Volk who's really a good game planner and a high fight IQ, and able to make adjustments in the fight, which we saw him do.
Yeah, 100%. It's all very interesting. We'll get into the scoring in a second, but I think one last point for me, and maybe on the technique of it and all, like, so I saw a few people saying the size was a massive issue here, and I don't think it really was, to be honest. I thought it might have been, but I don't think it played out that way. I think the power was more an issue here. Like, Volkanovski would have won the game, would have won the fight, would have won the tactical game if it wasn't for those two like big power shots. And okay,
I suppose a bigger guy can land a bigger shot. So
yeah, it's true. But Makhachev is a very powerful guy. Like, we on the previous show, if anyone listened to it, we talked about that. Like, myself and Ian, one of them, I think it was last maybe Monday or Tuesday, we sat down and we watched about 7 or 8 different Makhachev fights, and from an analytical point of view, and looked at him, and like the take from that was that he's not the best technical fighter in the world, but he hits damn hard, really, really, really hard. And that was kind of exactly what showed here. I think Volkanovski showed that he can fight in a better technical way than Makhachev. Although not as much as I thought, and not as much as a lot of people thought, so absolute credit to Makhachev, but Makhachev will have the power to be able to rock anyone because he hits so hard.
I think it was going that way that you were kind of talking about there until, about 2 minutes into the first round or a little less. It kind of was looking like that. And then obviously there was a big shot and felt the power and kind of had to respect the power and, had to kind of change it up a little bit. But for a while there in the first round, it was kind of looking like Volk was going to have too much of him on the feet. Yeah,
it was. But fair play to Volk. Like, fair play to Islam for able to drop him a couple of times. But Volk, and obviously to come back as well, kind of get a couple of takedowns of his own, in fairness. And I agree with you in that 4th round. It was a bit of a mistake. So let's talk about the scoring. We might as well. Did you score? Was it 1, 2, and 4 you scored for Makhachev?
Yeah, with the second and the fourth being really close as well. The second I think is a little bit more clear cut, but it was really close as well. And then the 4th round, I think, obviously the taking the back is great and all, but he did eat a lot of kind of small rapid punches over his head. I don't know how much force he could really get into them. There was a couple that looked harder than others, but I think Islam did enough with before it hit the ground. With it was a nice left hand followed a few seconds later by a right hand that did seem to be acknowledged, or kind of there was a nod from Volk as if nice shot, and I think there was a couple of nice shots there. I think that was just enough, and you're showing, okay, that hurt me, and or nice one there, mate, like, and that can swing rounds, and little mistakes like that, or like little mistakes like the line up to the crowd as well, that can swing like such a fucking tight fight like this. It's such a tight round, and I think it did, and I think if he had it again, it might be a different story, but Makhachev might have done things differently as well if he needed to in the 5th round.
I think that was the biggest mistake, and throughout the whole fight, Volkanovski kept saying, "Oh, you hit me there, nice one," or whatever. Oh, you can't. Like, why are you admitting that to the judge? Like, just play it off and like have some.
The crowd were doing what he should have been doing. The crowd were no selling everything that landed on him and fucking popping for everything that he did, even if it didn't land. And he should have been playing along, and maybe it would have been a different scorecard.
Yeah. So like I had it. I had all the rounds the same as you, except for the 4th. I gave that to Volkanovski, but it's very close. We'll talk about that in a second. Like the first round, I think. Okay, the only dissenting rounds for the judges was the 3rd round. 2 judges gave that to Volkanovski. 1 judge gave it to Makhachev. I think it was a close round, but it's a Volkanovski round. So look, two out of 3 judges.
I was very surprised with the.
Yeah, I was a bit surprised with that as well. Yeah. But Volkanovski won that. The first 2 rounds, Makhachev won both of those rounds because he simply landed the more impactful shots throughout the 2 of them. As we both kind of said there, maybe the tactical part of the fight was being won by Volkanovski, but the impactful part of the fight in the first 2 rounds was being won by Islam. And they're all of these are close rounds, especially the 2nd round can swing a lot because Volkanovski hit him too and put him down too. But so that's the first 3 rounds, and in the 5th round, that's probably the easiest round. That's the only easy round of the fight to score. That was an obvious Volkanovski round. It was relatively close up until the end, where Volkanovski dropped him hard, ground and pounded, definitely won that round. So there's no debate over that. So I think, look, 1, 2, 3, and 5, most people would agree with that. I think the first 2 for Islam, the 3rd and 5th for Volkanovski. So it all comes down to this 4th round, and it's an interesting 4th round because, as I said, I don't really look at the stats, but I saw 6 shots of impactfulness for Volkanovski and 4 for Makhachev. So that's the fighting on the feet basically before they went to the ground. Basically null and void. Nothing much really happened there. Even though Islam,
I don't know, there was that nice left followed by a couple seconds later by that right that he nodded to. I think that definitely kind of stopped him in his tracks. I think he was take a few seconds off.
I think I think Islam was just ahead, right? So if you want to score it null and void, what happened afterwards, which is fine. I think giving Islam that round, I've no problem with that at all, to be honest. I think he was just ahead, but it was very, very marginal. But then we had like this, whatever it was, 2.5 minutes. It felt like 10 minutes on the back, however long it was. And this is a very interesting debate, and this is very interesting how you judge this, right? Because you look at this in 2 different ways, and people, I saw some people saying last night about he was, octagon control and cage control and all that. It's not that. What you need to look at here is effective striking and effective grappling, right? And we didn't have any effective striking or effective grappling in this 2.5, 3 minutes, whatever it was. We had striking, grappling, bits and pieces of both of them. Those little punches from Volkanovski into the face were not big, effective, significant strikes, right? They weren't, but they added up. He had landed a good few strikes. They added up. For Makhachev, he didn't have a rear naked choke. He didn't land big ground. I mean, he landed a few shots, but not much.
He landed a couple of decent ones.
He landed a couple, but the point is, he was making Volkanovski, especially for the first minute or whatever it was, he was making Volkanovski defend a lot. He was getting the hand under the chin a little bit. Volkanovski'd have to pry it off. That counts as effective grappling more than just holding the position. So if you want to look at that, right, and say he has the position for 3 minutes, he should score from that. No, but he should score for the attempts to get the chokes, for going for submissions, when you see Volkanovski having to defend, he deserves to score from that. So if you want to give that round to Islam based on that, I can't disagree with you on that at all, because that as effective a grappling as the strikes that Volkanovski was throwing. I think there's a debate there. This is why there's no such thing as a robbery or anything in this fight. But this is the minutia of judging that is so intricate. You'd want to have a fucking hour of a debate or a chat with a judge or a seminar with a judge to look at it and to actually understand it. And it's very hard, because I disagreed with the judges. I scored it the other way. The reason I scored it the other way was this, right? So Islam had the back control. He was attempting submissions, and after a while he stopped attempting submissions. So there was Volkanovski was kind of holding the hand. He wasn't defending massively. He wasn't defending for his life. The arm wasn't getting under the chin or anything like that. And then he started throwing those couple of punches, and he threw a few punches and threw a few punches. And then there was these punches, okay, these are starting to add up. They're not massive punches, but they're starting to add up. And then at the end, he actually landed a couple of good ones from there that, made Islam move and made him, made him, hurt him a little bit. Not massively hurt or anything, but they were more significant than the strikes that came before. So you're looking at that then, right?
I don't know if he hurt him, but
no, hurt is the wrong word, but he hit him hard. He wouldn't want to take those shots again, right? Even though they were in that weird position. You look at that and you think, there's a decision to be made there then. Who had the more impactful stuff in that position? Was it the submission attempts or the grappling attempts, if you want to put it that way, of Islam Makhachev, or was it those rabbit punches of Volkanovski? It's a coin toss. It is a real coin toss. There's not much there. There really isn't much there. For me, it does come down to the start of the round with the punches I mentioned, the left and then the right that was acknowledged. I think that's very fair.
The grappling and the kind of small punches over your shoulder where you can't really get the force and the velocity that you're looking for, but they are obviously landing. And Islam's probably thinking, if I take 100 of these, maybe they'll score the round against me. I think it was more a tactical decision to move than, this is hurting me. So I think, to me, that round came down to those two punches. And maybe other people think that those little kind of rabbit over the thing punches were enough to add up and to overtake the start of the round, and that's fair enough. It's obviously a really close round, and I don't think if it had been a split decision, or if a judge had dissented, or if it had been going the other way to Volkanovski, I don't think too many people would have been arguing too hard either. But
if you look at that round backwards, all right, and this happens a lot in fights, but let's say Volkanovski was Islam had the back of Volkanovski in the first 3 minutes of the round, and they got up from that position, and let's say Volkanovski, you thought he was a bit ahead because of the strikes. Let's maybe that's not how everyone sees it, but let's say that is it. Would the shots that Islam landed be enough to take away that round from Volkanovski? In the shots that Islam landed
I think so. Just about though, but just about
it's not a big hurtful shot. It's not a knockdown. It's not a big impactful shot there. I don't think. I've actually no problem with scoring the round based on what you said there, and that's 100%. I can see that logic. But if it's the other way around, you usually need a very big impactful shot to take a round like that, where there are a lot of shots landed in it, even if they aren't massively impactful, if you get me. Because, it needs to show a massive immediate impact. Maybe I'll go back and watch it again. But I was leaning Volkanovski, but it is a coin toss. I was thinking whoa, who am I going to give it to? But you know what? This is a wider debate as well, because I actually think I scored that fight, right? And this is people might not believe this, but this is true, right? I scored that round, the Volkanovski, on my interpretation of the criteria. If you want to give my opinion of how that round should be scored, I think that round should be scored for Makhachev. I think that's maybe a little bit where people who say,
do you think there should be more emphasis on being able to get the body triangle on the back and things like that, or why would you? Would you adjust?
Yeah, I think it's gone a little bit too far. People can maybe get taken away sometimes by the way I talk and in such factualities about the scoring criteria and all, and confuse it with what I think should be scored in a fight. I listened to Luke Thomas. I listened to a few other people talking about it and saying that like grappling and wrestling and jiu-jitsu isn't scored high enough in MMA. We should have more emphasis on that. And I think I agree with that, to be honest. Now, that's not the way we have it at the moment.
I disagree with some of the detailed rules in soccer, but when it happens, that's the rule. Yes, you know what I mean?
Exactly. And that's why I talk about it in this way. And that's what we have done for the last 10 minutes here. But my own opinion on it would be that I think what Makhachev did there was a more effective MMA fighting, whatever you want to call it, technique than what Volkanovski was doing, and it should score more, but it doesn't.
If Volkanovski is in that situation and the rules are different, he probably acts differently. You know, he knows the criteria. So
yeah. It's very interesting. It is and that's 100% true as well, because people fight to the criteria we have. Like they fight because we have rounds, and
and maybe Islam is more wrestle heavy than even he was if the rules are. It just changes everything.
Yeah, it is true, and that's a big reason why wrestling isn't scored more. But I think like there could be a happy medium in there, and like this thing that Big John McCarthy was talking about during the MVP Storley fight as well, where like we score more heavily based on where the fight takes place. Now that's a thing that came from the old criteria that's not in the new criteria, but maybe that's something like, I don't think that's something we should fully bring back, right? Because then we'll have John Fitch in a lot of fights, if you get me. And we don't want that anymore. But that's definitely, look, that's a discussion for another day, and we could spend an hour talking about that, I suppose. But in this fight,
it was definitely too far in the past. It was too far one way, and now maybe you're saying it's a little bit.
It probably is a little bit too far.
Corrected too much, yeah.
But I think from the past point, we probably needed to adjust that 50%. From here, I think we only need to adjust it 5%, if I'm being honest, back to that. But you know what the biggest problem with that, right? It's easy at times to write score effective striking, score effective grappling, and we can see like what an effective strike is or what effective grappling is in terms of going for submissions or getting someone in a rear naked choke or an arm bar or anything like that. But to score like the minutiae of effective grappling when it's maybe not going for a submission. Let's say Makhachev had that position with the body triangle for like 2 or 3 minutes and didn't attack at all with submissions. To be able to write in the criteria that scores, but holding someone maybe you're in their guard for the same amount of time doesn't score. That's a very hard thing to write. Like, how the fuck do you write that? And that's a big problem we have. But anyway, we'll forget about that because we don't want to get into like a complete judging debate here. But it was just such a great fight, such a close fight, toss of a coin, and don't get hung up in the judging. I think it was very, very close. What do you think should happen next, Graeme? Like, I do get carried away sometimes, and I just think rematch. Is the rematch the right thing to do, or do you think they should both move on here?
I enjoyed the fight so much that I probably, if they announced a rematch, I'd be pretty happy. Maybe, they'll just move on because it wasn't really, if it was a split decision or if there was a bit more controversy, maybe it would lead them into it straight away. But, it's probably the time to do it. Like, I think it will depend on the numbers, how it trended, more than anything, really. I think from a sporting point of view, I'd absolutely love to see it from an entertainment point of view and all that stuff. But it does come down to numbers in a lot of ways. And I don't know how this was trending or anything, but, hopefully a lot of people tuned in to see it because it was a brilliant fight. But I wouldn't be sure what the numbers are. Like, I wouldn't really have any idea. Like, we haven't had real numbers in a long time since the ESPN deal. Yeah, I'd like to see it, but I think it depends on the numbers.
Yeah, it's interesting, like, because look, at featherweight, we know we'll talk about the featherweight fight here in a second. No spoilers for a second, because maybe
I think it kind of spices up the featherweight division as well.
It does.
Like, even though Volkanovski's been so brilliant to watch over the years, I think having a dominant champion sometimes can kind of take away from the other fights if people don't really believe that the person has a chance against the champion. And obviously we'll talk about the co-main event in a minute, but it probably makes it more exciting without Volkanovski kind of being there at the top of the division, ready to kind of beat everybody comfortably.
I think it even made it more exciting last night, seeing like who the next challenger is actually going to be, because I felt for a long time we didn't really have that. Now we do have something there, but at lightweight it's a little bit different then, because like Charles Oliveira is fighting Benil Dariush, looks like, coming up. Justin Gaethje is going to fight Rafael Fiziev coming up in a few weeks here. Mike Chandler obviously fighting Conor McGregor. What's the crack with Dustin Poirier? We don't know. So there isn't like an obvious choice there. Maybe if Fiziev wins, maybe, you know, he'll get the shot. Maybe if Dariush beats Charles Oliveira, he'll get the shot. But that's a little bit down the line as well. So it's interesting there. Like,
what way do you think the UFC will go? Do you think it'll be the rematch, or
no? I think they'll move on. I think they'll do Yair and Volkanovski. I think they'll probably do it in Mexico and have a big fight there, and then I think they'll probably just keep Islam out for a while. Maybe put him on one of the Abu Dhabi cards if they have one coming up in the summer or later in the year, because he kind of said that as well. I think last night afterwards he wants to fight in, like, I don't know, August or something like that. So it'd be enough time to have one of those fights happen. Like,
maybe, I don't know if Volk talked about it much in the lead up, but I don't know if he wants to go down to 45 again. That could be a thing. You know, obviously, you know, he's not huge for 145 pounds. We've seen bigger guys, but it's still a big weight cut. And, you know, going through a camp for 55, a couple of camps for 55, he might think, you know, I like it here, and he might think I won that fight, or I can make slight adjustment to win that fight and be the champion here, and he might want to stay there. That could be a factor in it as well. Yeah,
very interesting. I think it'll be very interesting to see what actually happens. Like, from a selfish point of view, I would absolutely love to see the rematch. I think like the fact that we have an interim champion at 145, like, if he wants to defend that belt, Arnold Allen is there. I know he's supposed to fight Max Holloway, but like, let's get rid of that fight, and let's have Arnold Allen versus Yair Rodriguez, and then we have basically like 3 possible interim fights at lightweight that are happening now, and then that's no problem as well. So yeah, I would love to see it. One last thing before we move on. So Volkanovski came in at number 1 in the pound for pound rankings. Islam came in number 2 in the pound for pound rankings. Now, okay, pound for pound rankings, absolutely fairy tale.
Rankings mean nothing.
Yeah.
Who cares?
I think after this, though, it just proves that Volkanovski is number 1, the pound for pound rankings. Because if we're to look
he's a 10-pound lighter fighter. Like,
yes, he's a 10-pound lighter fighter, and it was Islam Makhachev won the fight. We both agree with this, right? He won the fight based on 2 minutes of back control. Right? We both agree with that. Like,
well, you don't agree. You think he lost the fight? But
no, but it came down to that. Like, all the other parts of the fight, if it didn't come down to that, it would have been. It would have gone a different way. Is that enough to say a guy with that's the champion 10 pounds lighter is not a better pound for pound fighter than Makhachev? Absolutely not. Like, this proved Volkanovski is the number 1 pound for pound because it was so close. And like, some people I saw, but Makhachev just beat him. What are you talking about? I was like, are you fucking an idiot? Like, what? I know.
Well, like, if they were in the same division and if it was just like who's the best lightweight or who's the best featherweight, then yeah, I can see that. But yeah, I agree with you. 10 pounds is you know, it's not boxing where there's a weight every kilo or two or every couple of pounds or whatever. There's, you know, 10 pounds is a big step up. There's a reason why people, you know, historically haven't really changed divisions and been successful a lot. And, you know, as you said, this fight, these rounds were razor close, and even other rounds, the first and the second round that he lost could have changed on, you know, tiny little different decisions, or just little bits of should have zigged when you zagged and stuff like that, like just these minuscule things. And this is a really close decision, and yeah, I do think that, you know, it makes sense what you're saying, and maybe people are, you know, not really taken into account. They just think that pound for pound means like greatest fighter, but not actually what it does mean.
Indeed. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about the co-main event, which we alluded to there a second ago, for the interim featherweight title, Yair Rodriguez versus Josh Emmett. And this wasn't half as competitive a fight, but a very fun fight for as long as it lasted. Yair Rodriguez came out in the first round and to me was absolutely piecing up Josh Emmett. Emmett looked like
nice and flowy, wasn't he?
Very flowy.
Like, even for him, you know, he's obviously got a lot of tools and he can put them together, but in this fight he looked in the zone. He looked like, you know, this was his moment, and very early on it looked like Josh Emmett didn't really know what to do. It took a couple of minutes for him even to throw a strike, I think, or to throw anything significant anyway. And Yair had already kind of, you know, got into his rhythm by then, and was just he looked phenomenal, really. Obviously Josh Emmett is a bit of an old school style fighter, but he's been a real problem for a lot of fighters, and Yair Rodriguez just absolutely ran through him. It was a phenomenal performance, really rose to the occasion of, you know, obviously it's not a full title, but it's an interim title, and you know, he looked like he was ready. And you know, sometimes when these guys are flashy and stuff, they have kind of problems with the basics, but Yair Rodriguez, when he's on, he's just phenomenal. And recently he's been on more than he hasn't been on. And you know, obviously you're looking at Max Holloway and Arnold Allen, as you said, as a lot of people said, they were kind of disappointed that fight was made, even though it's a really good fight and it should be really entertaining and all that. Just that maybe they should have waited, and I don't think they're going to pull the fight, but I think hopefully for the kind of freshness of the division, and Arnold Allen wins. Obviously Max Holloway is a fan favorite and stuff like that, but it could end up going back into the sequence of Volkanovski versus Max Holloway if kind of things work out differently than Arnold Allen winning that fight.
Yeah, that's very true, because like if Holloway does win that fight, he has beaten like the next guy in line, so it's very difficult to know, I suppose, what to actually do with that. But I suppose we'll digress on that for a second, and just to get back to the fight. But like, it was funny, I said there, like, Yair was piecing him up, and he was for the start of the first round, and he was in the second round. But we forget that Emmett almost kind of knocked him out, and he didn't knock him out, but he knocked him down and wobbled Yair. I thought more than like the commentary led on, or more than it felt maybe to a lot of people in the arena and stuff. I think he like seriously wobbled him there, and I gave that round to Emmett based on that, and that was a close round, and he could have gone to Yair, but Yair came out in the second round.
I think the body kicks for me,
they were good.
There were some vicious, like, really
better
fast
in the second round
baseballs
than the first round.
there was still a few nice ones. He reacted. You know, Josh Emmett's a fucking tough-nosed guy. You could see on his face the way he kind of leaned over as well, that a couple of them had hurt him as well. But yeah, that shot definitely stunned Yair. But I actually thought he did enough to win the round with the body work and, you know, the other strikes that he landed as well.
Yeah, they both got hurt in at the start of the second round. It was just turning into a kind of a war at that stage. Yair, the series of body kicks, you know, which you mentioned there, the best ones came in the second round, and they like completely, you know, Yair was winning, but they took it for him massively. I think those were the ones that kind of changed the fight into like an even fight, which one guy was kind of winning with a chance of getting knocked out, into a fight where one guy was ahead and he was smashing him, and he was, after those kicks, he was really smashing him. The only thing that went against Yair, he did the Eddie Alvarez style flying knee, which you know me, everyone knows I love that. Ended up getting taken down, landed a series of elbows,
RDA style, you mean?
Yeah. No, Eddie Alvarez. Was it RDA? No, it was Eddie.
RDA. Oh, sorry. He did. Yeah, no, he actually. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Two RDA. Right. Yeah, he did it on RDA. So the two of them were in there. But yeah, he got the armbar in, but then he switched to triangle, and he ended up submitting Josh Emmett from down there. But it was one of those ones.
There was a couple of opportunities for Josh Emmett to get out. Even his corner were shouting, "Watch the triangle," and I think he was just a little bit, you know, didn't respect enough the off his back game of Yair, and obviously it cost him. But I think there was, maybe if Yair was known more as a jiu-jitsu guy rather than a striker, maybe, you know, Josh Emmett would have played that differently and had a little bit more respect for the ground game of Yair. And
do you think it was because he was hurt and he was trying to kind of rest there maybe for a while?
Yeah, could have been. Maybe he made the calculation that I'm getting bashed to the body here on the feet, and I can't take many more of these, so I'll take my chances with this triangle attempt, with these triangle attempts.
Probably not a bad idea. To be fair,
yeah, it could be. Like, I've never taken fucking, what is it, like 6 or 7 lightning quick baseball bat shots to the liver or whatever.
I haven't either, but I don't think they'd be nice. For being honest,
fucking hell, pull me like a lawn chair.
Put me in a triangle. I'll tap out in 2 minutes. That'll be no problem. But I agree with the point of as well about maybe him not respecting the grappling of Yair. We've seen it in the past, like Yair can grapple. Even though afterwards in the interview he was like, "Oh, I remember I got someone in a triangle before, and my coach told me put my ankle underneath my knee, and he's like, it worked. So I remember that. And I did it again." I was like, I've never trained jiu-jitsu in my life, but is that not like the most common thing in jiu-jitsu, to put the fucking ankle underneath the knee? I remember hearing that when I started watching MMA.
I don't know if it was like lost in translation or something, that he was, I don't know.
Yeah, but it was, I thought it was just funny. It was, it was nice more than anything else. It was kind of a funny moment. But yeah. Look, it was one of those fights that the main event was one that you can like deeply analyze, I think, in terms of the technique and the tactics, whereas this one was kind of just, Emmett likes to land big shots. He didn't do that early because he was kind of caught in the headlights. Yair was very flowy, as you say. Then Emmett landed one shot in him. Yair started to be getting flowy again, and Emmett just started trying to throw bombs at the start of the second round. Yair ate him up, and then submitted him. And that was kind of the story of it. And do you know what as well, though? It's great for Yair because, like, and it's great for MMA fans, because we have a guy, right, who we always thought was a really good fighter, who proved that he's now a really good fighter after not having that many fights in the last while. And okay, it's an interim and all of that, but he has the belt to show that. But now what, for MMA fans, we have this like really exciting guy holding the belt. And if he goes in there and he fights Aaron Allen, or he fights Max Holloway, or he fights Volkanovski, whichever it may be, and it's probably going to be Volkanovski, we have the prospect of like a really exciting fight in our hands. Because it's hard to fight Yair Rodriguez and not have an exciting fight. Even we saw last night, he was taken down, the fight was on the ground, and it was still exciting. He still ended up getting the submission. So that's brilliant. Like, sometimes, like, even Makhachev, and it's unfair because he had an exciting fight last night, but he wins the title and you're kind of thinking, this is just going to be a guy dominating like 5 or 6 guys in a row here now until maybe someone can beat him, or maybe he moves on or whatever. And it happens a lot, I think, in mixed martial arts, that sort of thing. And maybe it's an unconscious bias against wrestlers or whatever, but I actually think it's a bias against domination more so than wrestlers. It doesn't matter really if they're wrestlers. It just so happens that wrestlers are often the most dominant fighters and so on. Like GSP was one. He wrestled a lot, but a lot of his fights were won by like jabbing and dominating guys. Whereas with Yair, you can kind of, and Charles Oliveira was the same.
GSP was kind of a lot more loose with his attacks when he was on the way up, and once he got to the top, he became a lot more kind of safety conscious. And obviously back then, as we talked about earlier, being on top and grappling scored a lot more, and maybe GSP would have done it differently if he was in the judging criteria that we have now. But yeah, some guys we see, and hopefully I don't think it will happen with here, but sometimes we see them when they have to fight 5 rounds regularly and they are holding the belt, they become more kind of tactical than wild, like Yair has been.
I don't think that's in Yair's makeup, though. to be fair, that has definitely happened with Woodley, happened with GSP, happened with loads of different people. I don't think it's going to happen with Yair, though. It'll be interesting, to see, I suppose, how that goes, because Volkanovski and him just looks like.
I don't think so either. But there's been guys that you wouldn't have expected it from before, and it's happened. But like Izzy and others. But yeah, I do agree that Yair just seems to have that kind of balls to the wall kind of in his DNA.
Yeah, I must say as well, after last night, about the pantheon of featherweight champions that Yair Rodriguez now joins. You have obviously Volkanovski, who won the belt from Holloway, who won it from Jose Aldo, who obviously got the belt back after Conor McGregor had won it from him. And like, what an array of talent there has been in that division. Like, to me, looking at the history of all the belts, it is the most high level historical belt ever. And Yair joining that now, he's like a bit to live up to there. I think he's probably the first guy ever who hasn't proven to be world class to hold the belt yet.
Yeah, well, he doesn't hold the full belt. We got to remember that.
Yes, that's true. Though. That is true as well. But it's interesting. I put up a thing last night. I ended up deleting it because people took it wrong. But like the level that they have, McGregor was the only one to actually move weight classes and win the title. Like sometimes, sometimes we don't appreciate greatness enough. But like you look at all those great fighters and you look at the level that McGregor was actually able to win it. Now we're Irish and we're a bit biased and all of that. Absolutely, shame on us. But God Almighty, let's admire that. Sometimes he doesn't get enough credit for that. But how fucking huge that was. Volkanovski wasn't able to do it. Aldo wasn't able to go down and do it. Max Holloway wasn't able to go up and beat Poirier and do it. Yet McGregor was able to do it. Even though he had the 2 Diaz fights before it, he still was able to do it. Absolutely massive. And we should fucking appreciate that a little bit more. Whether you hate McGregor or you love McGregor, it doesn't matter. The ability
and
to
don't forget the style in which he did it as well. You know, that has to be factored in my opinion.
Unbelievable. Absolutely
we've talked about that Eddie Alvarez fight before, but that was an absolute masterclass. And going up weights, I said it earlier, it's different than in boxing. It's especially in these divisions that are so stacked, like 145 and 155, absolutely stacked divisions. Like to be a champion there, you really have to be a really well-rounded fighter. If you have big flaws in your game, usually you won't get anywhere near the top of these divisions. And even if you don't have flaws in your games, you can like many flaws in your games like Volkanovski, you can just come up against a difficult style matchup and another upper echelon great champion and you can lose. So yeah, there's a reason why it's been especially at the lower weights has been done so few times.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like the last 2 weeks I've been like the Conor McGregor spokesman, and I shouldn't be that. But do you know what I hate in MMA? And I did this with Ronda Rousey as well. I hate when people like try to rewrite history to make someone seem like they're shit. Ronda Rousey was a great fighter for when she was. Yeah, McGregor was a great fighter. In like that 11-month stretch was absolutely fucking unbelievable. If John Jones goes out and loses to Cyril Gane, he was still a fucking great fighter. That really I hate that shit. I was so glad last week the way that Bellator, brought Fedor in, and they brought Matt Hughes and they brought Mark Coleman and all, a lot of the greats plus Chael Sonnen. They gave him their dues, but like we need to do that a little bit more. And okay, I've picked McGregor here, so everyone's saying, "Oh, well, you're sucking off McGregor," but I do it Ronda Rousey as well. Do it with lots of the great fighters down through the years. Like
the sport wouldn't be where it is without these fighters, and that should be appreciated.
Yes, like look, Jose Aldo's the perfect example, right? He lost to McGregor, he lost to Volkanovski, he lost to Holloway. It'd be easy to write him off like, he lost all the other champions. What are you talking about? Jose Aldo, one of the greatest fighters of all time. And we should appreciate that, even though he lost afterwards. Volkanovski lost last night. Who cares? He's still one of the greatest fighters of all time. He put on an astonishing fucking display.
Even like Anderson Silva, like go back to them performances like when he in his heyday, even when he was in his late 30s against like Forrest Griffin, who was the champion recently before at the even bigger weight discrepancy of 20 pounds step up, and like that performance against Forrest Griffin was phenomenal. And like it's a thing where you're better off retiring on top because people remember you as this untouchable guy, and if you age always catches up and it always ends badly if you keep fighting on. But as you said, that shouldn't taint how you were at your peak and how good you were and what you achieved and all of that stuff. So it is a shame that these things do seem to be tainted in a lot of people's minds, but maybe a bit of distance, and when we look back at it historically, it'll be appreciated more.
Sometimes I think the distance actually makes us not appreciate it less, to be honest. But maybe small, 5 years makes us appreciate it less. Maybe 15 years will make us appreciate it more. But we'll wait and see. And like I have so much respect for someone like Volkanovski, who tested himself and went up. McGregor tested himself and went up. The likes of Frankie Edgar went around to divisions, tested themselves, had the biggest fights. So much respect for them. GSP did it, and we need to remember all those. Anyway, we'll move on because we could spend years talking about that. Jack Della Maddalena is brilliant. This guy, he just waited for Randy Brown to do what he was going to do, looked at it for 3 minutes, and then just said, okay, I know what you're going to do, punched him once in the face and submitted him. That was basically it. He's just the balls to do what he did to just do nothing for 3 minutes of a round. There's only 15 minutes in the fucking fight, and to do nothing for 2.5, 3 minutes, that takes serious balls. Usually, like, people get drawn in and they have to do something. They have to throw a punch just to throw a punch, just to do something. Jack Della Maddalena didn't. He just waited.
In front of his home crowd as well, you know, just staying patient, so patient. And Randy Brown was actually, like, you know, fighting better than, or moving better than he usually moves. Looked, you know,
100%.
Looked good. And, you know, even the punch that landed, it didn't actually look like I was wondering, was it the fact that he kind of landed on his head? Did that kind of double the impact or add to the impact and kind of have him more disorientated than he would have been from the punch? But either way, yeah, Jack stayed so calm, like, as you said, and patient, and picked his spot and just waited for his opportunity. And once the opportunity did come, you could see, you know, the killer instinct and, yeah, just phenomenal finish. Smelled blood and, you know, picked the shots well, overwhelmed him, and got the rear naked choke.
I think it was the placement of the shot as well. The fact that it hit him right behind the ear and disorientated him, and then he hit his head off the ground. Very, very tough. And like the movement, how quick he was to jump on the back and get the rear naked choke. Absolutely brilliant. I'm sure, look, Harry Powell is going to wax lyrical for probably half an hour on the takeaways on Tuesday. So we'll leave it till that. But God almighty, I could wax lyrical about Jack Della Maddalena as well. One of my favourite fighters to watch. And this guy is, if he's not ranked this week, he's going to be ranked sometime soon. He's phenomenal. They put up like a graphic of like the top win streaks and stuff, and it's him and Michel Pereira as like the two guys on those win streaks. I'd like that fight. I would watch that fucking fight. That'd be a good 5-round fight, headliner of a fight night. Give me that, please. Let's do that. You up for that, Graeme? Jack Della Maddalena versus Michel Pereira?
Yeah, that'd be a great fight. You know, just before we move on from this, I just had a kind of side point, but doing more shows in Australia and, you know, stuff like that, I think like the UFC need to get back to that. Obviously, the 100%. Apex was great for the time and the pandemic and all that stuff, and it maybe like the odd fight night, but getting these, you know, big fight feels from the crowd, like for these, you even mentioned that the undercard was a bit underwhelming and it kind of the card got going late, but the fans kind of made it, you know, twice as entertaining as it would have been if it was in the Apex, you know what I mean? Or even in Vegas in a kind of half interested crowd. I think going to places like Canada that they haven't been in a long time, and Australia more, and, you know, the UK and Ireland obviously would be great for us. Like getting back on the road, I think it adds to the big fight feel and the big event feel, and, you know, I think that's important to the UFC, and they've kind of stepped away from that too much.
I would agree. Like, I actually don't mind the Apex events as much as other people. But do you know what they need to do more? They need to do more. They're doing it with the pay-per-views. They need to do more like big 3/4 level cards, if you want to put it that way. Like, they need to do a big card in Ireland. They need to do a big card in like Manchester or something that's not a pay-per-view. You know, they need go to Germany, go to Italy, go to Australia. I don't know why they're not doing that as much. It's a costing. I know why they're doing it, but yeah, I think to grow the sport and to be the world leader, they need to do that more. But we, you know, again, Justin Tafa, Parker Porter. Just
before you move on, it feels like a bigger win for Della Maddalena because
he's at home. Yeah.
Yeah, because he's at home. Like, if he had to just beat Randy Brown in you know, half empty crowd in Vegas Arena or in the Apex, it probably would have seemed like it meant a lot less.
It made me think, like, why isn't Ian Gary fighting in Ireland next? Like, PFL are putting on the card here, Bellator are putting on the card here, Katie Taylor's gone boxing here. Why can't the UFC put on a fucking card in Ireland? You know?
They announced the card before the pandemic, so like, why not? Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea.
Ireland has been open for a good while. Like, there's fucking a shitload of Cage Warriors putting on a card. We have a shitload of cards coming up. Like, Ireland is open. Like, the pandemic is over. It's gone. Like, here we go. Come on, and they're just not doing it. It's a bit weird, but anyway. As I said, Parker Porter got knocked out by Justin Tafa. Jimmy Crute and Alonzo Minifield. Graeme, did you see my picks for the fights at the weekend?
Yeah, I did. Fair play. Did you bet on it or no?
No, I didn't. But Patrick betting it. He only put 50 cents in it, but 65 to 1. He won like 33 quid or whatever it is.
50 cent. Fucking hell.
That's all.
Put on at least the fucking fiver or something. Come on, mate. Like,
but it's like it's an outside bet, but Yeah, I just like my thought here was more maybe of a 10-8 than a point deduction, to be honest.
Well, that is a 10-8, I suppose. But yeah, I know what you mean.
but
yeah.
It was close.
But yeah, I don't know. That's mad. I think you called one draw before in the history of your picks.
And it almost was a draw. There was a point, or there was a 10-8 in that as well, but it was. Yeah. I think it was.
So you haven't been fishing for this for ages and like throwing it in randomly a lot. So that's in fairness to you, like credit where credit's due.
It was only my second one, and almost both of them came off. So I think I might retire it after this. Although, like,
were you celebrating as?
Yeah, I was.
I was loving it. I was the happiest man in the world at that point. Being taken.
I was.
Or maybe Patrick, were you watching it with Patrick? Right?
Yeah, I was. I think he had bet for the fight to go to a decision as well. So he won fucking 2 bets in that. My bets were just awful fucking last night, so I wasn't celebrating too much. But
I picked all the right winners except for that one. I didn't pick a draw.
I didn't get Volkanovski, although he was robbed blind by the fucking judges. No, he wasn't. But yeah, I got the rest of them right. Meneses Bukauskas, what a performance from him. As good as Bukauskas was, I think Pedro was as bad. He was fucking horrendous.
I don't know, but Bukauskas, he nearly, let the round slip away. I thought he could have done more offense, and his corner was going absolutely berserk, calling for it as well, and he just seemed a little bit hesitant, even though it was a great win and a great performance. I think he could have, maybe he had a little bit too much respect for Tyson Pedro and maybe expected a bit more from him and didn't want to commit himself, and it obviously worked out in the end. But I think he could have made the rounds clearer, even though I thought he was a deserved winner.
I wonder with Tyson Pedro, is it all his injuries? I think he didn't have real bad knee injuries. I wonder, can he like not do cardio anymore, because like he seemed fuck tired after about 2.5 minutes. He was like me after climbing a flight of stairs. Like, he looks so fucking tired. It was absolute. I've never seen anything like it. It was ridiculous how tired he was looking there. Like, and take nothing away from Bukauskas, because like it was a nervy type of fight as well, and he came through.
It's on short notice as well, which has to be factored in.
And I thought he performed very, very well. Like I picked Pedro. I thought he was going to knock him out early, to be honest. I betting it even, and I was 100% wrong. Credit, massive credit to Bukauskas. He deserved it. Now he goes on, after winning the Cage Warriors belt, he's back and he's on a good run now. So great to see. He had a bad injury as well. He had a bad knee injury as well. So credit to him on that. Joshua Kulabau, as we mentioned earlier on, Alan Philpott in his corner. Alan Philpott actually had a fight earlier in the day, and he came in his corner. He ended up losing that fight, unfortunately, Alan, but he'll be delighted to get the win here with Josh Kulabau, who looks a real prospect at 11-1. Got a real bad kick in the balls, but came back and got the rear naked choke. Like,
turning sidekick, fucking heel to the balls. Yeah,
it looked like a fight in there, to be honest, the way he was between rounds. But
even in his corner, he was saying, "Oh, I can't really breathe." Like he should have taken the full 5 minutes, mate.
He's funny as well, Josh. Joshua afterwards, the way he was talking and stuff, it's he's like, we all played that game growing up where we'd smash each other on the balls. So it's like, yeah, we fucking did, to be fair. Yeah, you're right. So good win for him, and he moves on, and we went through all the rest of them, I suppose. Everyone's talking about Jack Jenkins. I'm going to need to see a little bit more out of him. I think he did look good, but I need to see more. Very unimpressed with Francisco Prado against Jamie Malarkey. Jamie Malarkey called out Paddy Pimblett afterwards. I think Spencer has called for that fight before. I think a few people have. I think that actually makes a good bit of sense, to be honest. Similar enough records, similar enough place in the UFC. Let's make it happen. Let's make it happen. Why not? The first fight of the night as well. Elvis Brenner against Siberia Tuhugov. People calling this a robbery. Went back and watched it afterwards, because the way the first fight of the night, you're kind of half watching, you're eating a bit of food and stuff. I wouldn't call it a robbery, but I don't think the right guy won. I think the second round was the only clear round, and that was for Tuhugov. And I think one of the judges didn't score it for him, so I think that's a very bad card, that one. 1 and 3 could have gone either way. I gave all 3 rounds to Tuhugov. I can see a 29-28 Brenner. I think the bad card was the 30-27 to Brenner. I wouldn't call it a robbery, but I would call it a bad decision.
I think it was the wrong guy won. I thought the first 2 rounds the second round was definitely clear, but I thought the first was quite clear as well. I thought the wrong guy won.
Yeah,
unfortunately. We talk about the judges all the time, but like, we should probably talk more about the fact that they get a base pay and a win pay, and this guy's getting half his money. Yeah, it's I think some bad cards there, and the wrong guy won. And it's one that wasn't close enough. That
I think it wasn't that bad. I think the first and third were very close. I think, but yeah, it's bad as well when the second round is the most clear round. That guy won it, and most people had the other 2 rounds for that guy as well. It just seems a lot worse, but yeah.
And when you get the 30-27 the other way as well, you're expecting, when the 30-27 is announced, you're expecting, okay, yeah, we know which way it's going, and it goes the other way. It's a bit jarring, which probably adds to the what the fuck. But yeah, I do think the wrong guy won that.
Indeed. Next week, so Graeme, we have UFC, and then look, the week after we have obviously the big Bellator Ireland card, and we will be previewing that next week. The UFC card next week goes down in the UFC Apex, Graeme. We're back 9 p.m. next Saturday night.
Big fight feel, you know.
What a fight though, Jessica Andrade versus Aaron Blanchfield.
Yeah, it's a really good fight, but I don't know. Is it a little too early for Blanchfield?
Maybe
to beat. Yeah, maybe. I don't know about this matchmaking, to be honest. I think they probably could have and should have waited a little bit. And you know, she's 22, 23 years old. Yeah, so, I think they could have waited here, but maybe you know, obviously. She might go in and win, and even if she loses, she'll probably learn a lot from it, and it will stand to her. But I think I was surprised with this matchup, but it is an exciting one, and there's a lot of questions around it, and it's a big chance to prove herself. But I think it's a big ask for Aaron Blanchfield. So
the UFC kind of fucked themselves here because they moved the Cheeto Vera versus Sandhagen fight to another card. And if they had taken Blanchfield off of it, so Blanchfield was supposed to fight Talia Santos, apparently it was a visa issue or something like that, and if they had cancelled that fight, there's nothing else on this card. Like, this card is fucking shit. Maybe you could have put Jim Miller versus Alex Hernandez. That's on short notice as well. I think Hernandez only just took that fight, so there's nothing else. You kind of had to find someone for Blanchfield, but like, should that be enough of a reason? You couldn't have got somebody to higher profile to fight OSP or something. I suppose you're messing around with more fights then, and yeah it gets messy. But like, I don't think saving one fucking Apex card is important enough to like possibly derail a prospect as good as Aaron Blanchfield. Now, if she goes out and wins, which she absolutely might, she's brilliant, we'll be saying something very different because it'll skyrocket her and she'll be fighting for a title next, more than likely. Yeah, it's probably, I would agree with you, it's a little bit too risky. And like, after that, like, Zach Poaga is not that good. He's fighting Jordan Wright. You know, we've seen like everyone else in the card almost. Maybe there's one or two up and comers that I'm missing out on, but like, we've almost like seen what everyone else in the card is. You know, maybe Escobar, he's 23-0 coming in. There's a few guys, like there's a few Clayton Carpenter 6-0, you know, a couple of guys 7-1 there in the card as well. But like, we've Jim Miller, we've like Josh Parisian, we have William Knight, we have OSP, we've Lena Landsberg. We've kind of seen kind of what all of them are. They're not prospects. They're not going to be winning or fighting for titles probably anytime soon. Like, why are they even on these cards? Like, remember Dana White used to say before, like, we only want people in the UFC who are going towards being the best in the world and fighting for a title. That was before they had 450 million cards every week, like, so. Yeah, but has there ever been a more ridiculous thing here? But you look at this, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 fights in this card. Is there any need for it? Like, and 2 of them got fucking cancelled. Is there more than 2, I'd say? Is there any need for all of this? Like, get rid of half of it. Down with this sort of thing. Down with this. Here's a list of people. Where's that soundboard clip you have there, Sean? Here we go. Hold on. Here's the people you need to cut from this card, right? Jamal Immers. Everyone. Timba Garimbo, never heard of him. AJ Fletcher. OSP, cut OSP. Philip Lins. I'll keep Marina Silva, I like her. Lena Landsberg, just for Philip O'Connor, I'll keep her. Clayton Carpenter against Juan Kimalo Ronderos, cut the both of them. Cut the 2 lads who are 7-0. Cut Jim Miller, sorry Jim. Cut Alexander Hernandez. Cut Josh Parisian. These guys won't be able to put food on their tables. Cut for their families. Cut them all. Evil. Give me a one night fight night card, and I'll take it. Cut them all. Cut every one of them. All right, we'll leave it there. Anything else happen in the world of MMA, Graeme, or are we like, you know, we look up? Don't know. You tell me. I don't. haven't been paying attention. You know, I've been watching fights and stuff like that. You know, not much kind of happens. But sure, look at, yeah. Any crack with you? Any do you talk to? There's a few interviews up on SevereMMA now. I think who was it? Andy spoke to who did he speak to? Pedro Carvalho. He spoke to, and he has. It's Gunny Nelson. He's interviewed Gunny Nelson coming up as well, and he's got good stuff there from Andy. Oh, last thing as well before we go. Jins Pulver in the UFC Hall of Fame. Jose Aldo a couple of weeks ago. We never talked about it in the UFC Hall of Fame. We talked about Jose Aldo earlier on today, and we all know how deserving he is. But Jins Pulver, Graeme, very deserving of getting into it as well. One of the legends of the early days of the lightweight sports.
Lighter pioneers, yeah. Some brilliant fights. Obviously. Those divisions were kind of the UFC and Dana White were reluctant to kind of bring them in, and they came and they went and things like that. And these guys kind of maybe are a little bit forgotten by not Aldo obviously, but Jens Pulver are kind of forgotten by new fans, and to get that recognition is great. The UFC Hall of Fame is just I don't know about the UFC Hall of Fame. They have all these stupid wings and all this stuff, and it's just I don't know. The politics around it, if certain guys that should be there aren't there because of disagreement, I don't know. It's just, I don't know if it has much credibility, to be honest. But for these guys, obviously, probably they don't think about that stuff. They want to be in the Hall of Fame, and for them, it's great. But yeah, I wouldn't put too much. I'd like to see maybe a unbiased MMA Hall of Fame, but that's very difficult to do.
Are we going to start in the Irish MMA Hall of Fame? Are we going to do it?
Oh, it's just too much hassle. I think people just get fucking angry over everything.
I'd like to do it, but it is a lot of hassle. It is a lot of hassle. We'd have to do an open vote, not an open voting, but Dave Meltzer does it very well with his Hall of Fame thing. I think he's loads of people voting, but there aren't actually that many people. The problem with voting in say an Irish MMA thing is if you give a vote to 10 SPG lads, they'll vote for the SPG fighter. If you give a lad to vote to 10 KF lads, they'll vote for the KF fighter. Or Rhino lads, they'll vote for Rhino. It's very hard to get people to actually vote unbiasedly and stuff logically and stuff and things like that. So that'd be my kind of takeaway from it, but that'd be hard to do. But anyway, speaking of Irish MMA as well, Johnny Walker is fighting Anthony Smith May 13th. Why is that not in fucking Ireland? Put that on in Ireland, come on. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they don't know about the fact that Irish fans will adopt anybody who's over here. So maybe that's part of it. They don't really understand that part of it. But yeah, I think it's unfortunate that obviously the pandemic kind of stifled that their plans to come to Ireland. Maybe, the fact that Dana was so excited after being in Dublin the couple of times that they were a few years ago, but the fact that a lot of things have happened, the years have passed. If they had to come just before the pandemic, maybe they'd be more eager to come back, and they've kind of forgotten about how passionate and how exciting the cards are here and all that stuff. But yeah, give us our chance again. We'll definitely make a big deal of it as we always do. And even the, as we said earlier, just even if they had Irish guys fighting in the UK, people will make the journey. And obviously going over to Vegas for a big fight, we've seen that in the past with McGregor and stuff, but it's expensive to do, and you kind of need a really, really big reason to do it. And obviously people like Ian Gary that you mentioned earlier, it'll be the fight just has such much significance and hype and everything. When if any of Ian Gary's current UFC wins were in Dublin, he'd be a bigger star than he is now, or even in the UK, he'd be a bigger star than he is now. It
is Dublin, but I think if he had a fight or two in Dublin, then people will start to travel for him as the hype builds if he keeps winning. Yeah,
people will be invested in. People will be paying more attention. He'd be a bigger deal, and obviously, he seems happy enough to fight wherever the UFC tell him, but it just makes a lot of sense to put on an Irish card, and hopefully we get an announcement. But just don't think they're. I don't know. I think they've kind of put it on the back burner, and it's going to stay there for a while, unfortunately.
Indeed. All right, we'll leave the podcast there for this week, lads. Thanks everybody for listening. If you are listening to this, don't be a fucking freeloader and click subscribe. It's free. It's free. If you don't click subscribe right now, you're a fucking freeloader. Click subscribe. I'm robbing that from this lad Sam, the cooking guy who I listen to on YouTube. I watch on YouTube.
Oh really? I was like, Sean's kind of very aggressive here.
But I like it. It's his gimmick, and I'm just going to steal it. So yeah, if you're listening on YouTube, if you're listening on SoundCloud or anywhere, maybe we might have video coming soon. Who knows? But yeah, click subscribe. iTunes, Spotify. If you could leave a review as well, that'd be great. Most of our reviews are from like years ago because we've been doing the podcast on 8 years, Graeme. This week, 8 years since the first episode of the SevereMMA podcast. This week. Been a fucking long time, so a lot of our reviews are from like 8 years ago. So if anyone's been listening the last couple of years and hasn't left a review yet, that'd be absolutely great. We'd appreciate that. So,
and if you could head over on YouTube, we're closing in on 30,000 subscribers. We've I think nearly or over doubled our subscriber count in the last few months or even year or whatever. So yeah, we're making a push there. There's loads of content going up there, and loads of insightful, detailed breakdowns and things like that, and interviews going up. There loads of different content, and even some funny shorts and some predictions, and just loads of different variety. And we'd appreciate it if you could go over to YouTube and subscribe and help us keep growing.
And if you want to do even more, patreon.com/SevereMMA podcast. Price of a breakfast roll a month. We get you loads of extra content.
Do it all, or you're a freeloader or whatever.
Freeloader. Don't be a fucking freeloader. Like, don't be a fucking freeloader. We need to get that on a t-shirt. Don't be a fucking freeloader.
I like the freeloaders.
Yeah, the freeloaders are sound as well. Yeah, fair play to them. All right, we leave it there. God bless you all. Graeme, see us out with an old quote for the week.
If you have 5 seconds to spare, then I'll tell you the story of my life. 16, clumsy and shy. That's the story of my life.
We'll see you next Tuesday or probably Sunday.